Hey, what's going on, Guardians? My name is the Black Link, and first things first, I hope you all are having a wonderful Mother's Day. Whether you're celebrating your mom, your grandma, or a mother figure in your life, give them a call, maybe send them a text or something. Let them know you care. Let them know you thank them for bringing you into the world and raising you right. Now, let's talk some Destiny. So Warmind has been out for a little bit less than a week, and I feel like we've had enough time to talk about a lot of the good things going on in Warmind, and now maybe we can talk a bit more about some of the critiques of some bits of content that have come into the game. There's certainly a lot to love about Warmind. I absolutely agree that Destiny 2 as a game is in a much better state now than it was before. There's stuff to grind for, there's some interesting in-game content. The raid lair, Spire of Stars, is one of the hardest raid encounters in the history of this franchise. That final boss is absolutely no joke. I think at the time of this recording, which is a couple of days after the raid has come out, there's still only been like maybe 16 or 17 teams that have beaten it across the world. Can you believe that? More than a day after the raid has come out, only 16 to 17 groups of people have actually beaten it. It's presenting a great challenge. Escalation protocol is super duper fun. With Warmind, Bungie has added in some in-game modes that are worth the grind and provide quite the challenge. And one of those, of course, is heroic strikes. And I wanted to focus a bit on heroic strikes in this video, and my critique of them, some of my problems with heroic strikes, what I like about heroic strikes, and what I think could be changed in the future. Right now is such an important time, probably the most important time to be giving Bungie feedback. They've been responding to player feedback and changing the way the game works based on the input that we're giving them. And so I wanted to make this video talking specifically about heroic strikes because I do have a couple of issues with them that I wanted to bring forward. I wanted to wait a couple days, get a couple chances to play through some of the modifier combinations, really kind of shore up my thoughts on how the heroic strike system is working right now. And I feel like right now is a great time to talk about this. So, first things first, disclaimer, I have no problems with how difficult heroic strikes are right now, and if you haven't played them, they are a doozy. Even if you're above 350 light, which is going to take a day or so of grinding and powerful engram farming to get to. Heroic strikes are rough. In my opinion, they're harder than the Nightfall right now. Of course, the Nightfall doesn't have any modifiers at all, which I kind of disagree with. It feels like the Nightfall is just a harder version of a base strike now, but we'll talk about that in a different video. I had a rougher time running some of these modifier combinations in heroic strikes than I did with the Nightfall and the prestige version of the Nightfall. Black Box and I were able to two-man those, but these heroic strikes, some of them can put you down really quickly. And I just want to say, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the increased difficulty in the heroic strikes. And I just want to get that disclaimer out of the way before people say, oh, well, you just want things to be easy with some of the rest of the critiques that I'm going to have in this. I love going through raids, escalation protocol, all that stuff. I don't have any problems with hard content. Now, that being said, I have really two main issues with heroic strikes. Only two. I swear, I'm going to make this as quick as possible. My two main gripes come down to this. One, while enemies have been made far more potent and far more deadly with some of the changes made to delta scaling and with the addition of the modifiers, the advantage and disadvantage modifiers within heroic strikes, enemies are a lot stronger. But you, as a Guardian, are not. And that can really lead to some frustrating situations. That's problem number one. Number two, there are absolutely no rewards that are worth your time within the heroic strike playlist. There's no real reason to run them outside of requirements for certain exotic quests. There we go. Those are my two issues. Now let's go ahead and break some of them down. So when it comes to issue number one, heroic strikes have been made much more difficult. Again, if you've run any of them this week, you've no doubt experienced how sweaty those PvE environments can be. Enemies are stronger. They're, of course, a higher power level than you when starting out. I think the minimum for heroic strikes is like 350. Delta scaling's been increased, so enemies take longer to kill and they hit much harder. All of that's okay. But now we've got additional modifiers like Glass, which cuts your player health and shields in half. It gives you double regeneration rate for those, but tell me if that matters when you're getting one shot by Brachian in the Pyramidian Strike. We've also got Blackout, which turns off your radar. Enemies deal 20 times more damage. Iron, where enemies no longer stagger and their health pools are increased by 50%. And then Grounded, where players take 5 times damage while airborne. Now, these modifiers on their own, definitely add some more challenge to it, but it doesn't seem like too much of a problem. It's when you mix in some of the other things versus the benefit modifiers you get as players that I feel like we run into some issues here in Heroic Strikes. Right now, it feels like we're getting the extra challenge. Enemies are hitting harder, enemies are becoming more difficult. But we as players aren't really getting any stronger. We've got some advantage modifiers like Brawler and like Grenadier, where your grenades and your melees respectively will deal double damage and you get double recharge rate. And we've got Heavyweight, which was going to be my favorite. I thought it was going to be the best modifier ever, where we get triple power ammo drop rate and double power weapon damage. Now, I've talked a bit about this on stream, but I feel like specifically with Heavyweight there, I didn't really notice the effects of it that much. I ran a couple of strikes on stream and tried to test it out with some people just to show them. I don't feel like I'm actually getting triple power weapon drop rate. I went through some strikes where I barely got any purple bricks at all. You definitely feel like you're getting double power weapon damage against enemies. You can see that much. Shotguns and grenade launchers and rocket launchers deal fantastic damage with this modifier active, but I don't feel like we're actually getting an increase in power ammo brick drop rate. And maybe that's just me, maybe I just have bad RNG, but I feel like that could probably be changed a little bit to ensure that you actually get more power ammo from regular red bar enemies. I don't know, that was just kind of a small issue there. But with some of the other advantage modifiers, they're kind of counteracted directly by some of the disadvantage modifiers. For example, you may have Brawler or Grenadier on, but Iron is right there to basically make it a zero-sum game, so that even though you're dealing more damage to enemies, they've got more health, so it's not really making too much of a difference. And the same can apply to Heavyweight with the increase to power weapon damage. If you're not getting power ammo bricks all the time, well, you're not really experiencing that. My problem here is that while the enemies are getting stronger, undoubtedly stronger with all of the disadvantage modifiers, you as a player don't really feel any stronger within Heroic Strikes. And my issue with that is this. I feel like Heroic Strikes are supposed to be that place where you can go, the versions of strikes where the modifiers can make the enemies really powerful, they can make them really challenging, but they also provide an opportunity to you to feel powerful as well. If you can remember the Heroic Strikes back in Destiny 1, well, after they were given modifiers in the Dark Below, I do believe, they were impactful. That is exactly what they did. You could go in on any given week, and sure, Light Switch might have been on, or Fresh Troops, or Ironclad, or Berserker, any of those modifiers that made enemies more difficult. But you know what else was there? Something like Small Arms to give you increased primary weapon damage, or Solar Burn, which back in its original form didn't give you a 25% increase to element damage, it gave you a 300% increase to element damage. That's right, take whatever element damage you're doing right now, multiply it by 3. That's what burns used to do back in Heroic Strikes. They knocked that down to a 2x, 200% damage increase. Basically double damage when the Taken King came out, I do believe. But even that is far greater than what we have with the elemental singes in Destiny 2. In my opinion, the singes are way too weak. They basically make no difference whatsoever. I had this great humorous moment when I was playing around earlier and testing damage. The Ikelos hand cannon, the one you get after completing the story, that Warmind hand cannon. I took that out, gave it a legendary solar mod, and pitted it up against just a normal kinetic hand cannon that was the exact same light level. That kinetic hand cannon was out damaging the solar hand cannon on a solar singe week. Now granted, they were in slightly different archetypes. I was using Midnight Q, which is in the 150 RPM archetype, and of course the Ikelos hand cannon is in the 180 RPM archetype. But with these sorts of modifiers, that shouldn't really matter. When it's Solar Singe, your solar weapon should be dealing the most damage. It's the thing that you should be relying upon to destroy the enemies in these strikes, and that's just not the case right now. The increase in damage is virtually negligible. At least when it comes to Guardian's outgoing damage against enemies. One of the combinations this week was, of course, Solar Singe plus Glass, which meant players had 50% less shield, 50% less health. I talked a bit about it earlier. I went into the Pyramidion strike, and if you ran through this on that day, you know this was a strike most people wanted to quit from. The boss, Brachian, could one-shot you with your lessened health. Same for some of the Hobgoblin snipers. That's fine. I'm okay with that kind of challenge. But the fact that you can't deal more damage to them, the fact that the damage that you're putting out isn't enough to match that, I have a fundamental problem with that in Heroic Strikes, and it's especially because it's such a stark contrast to how powerful you could feel in Destiny 1's Heroic Strikes. On a Solar Burn, or especially an Arc Burn Small Arms week, you could take that Fatebringer into any strike and destroy everything in sight, but if you were going up against some Vandal snipers, they could pop off on you and put you down in the dirt. My issue with Heroic Strikes right now is that they definitely have a challenge. These are definitely challenging activities. But at the same time, while enemies have become vastly more powerful, you as a player have not. And I find that intrinsically frustrating. So really, to put it simply, I don't have any problems with the disadvantage modifiers and how difficult strikes are right now. I have a problem with the advantage modifiers and the fact that they don't really feel like they're making much of a difference. Every heroic strike is still a slog. Yeah, sure, I have no problems with the strength level of enemies right now and how difficult some of these strikes can be. The Knockerish strike in particular on Solar Singe is rough. If he hits you with that Dying Star attack, it is a one-shot, baby. But I think these things should create a very high-risk, high-reward environment. After all, you're supposed to be playing this for fun. And that's something that's kind of missing right now. It doesn't feel very fun to go in there. And you certainly don't feel powerful as a player. That power fantasy is still something that's very much missing. And so I really just wanted to take some time to talk about that and basically say, hey, disadvantage modifiers are fine, stronger enemies are fine. Let's maybe put some more power into players' hands. Maybe give us some better, more powerful modifiers. Something like Small Arms would be really great in Destiny 2 right now. There should be a Daybreak modifier every now and again that just continually gives you your super. I don't know why a lot of these weren't just ported directly over to the game right now. I don't think there's really any big excuse for that. And I absolutely believe that the Elemental Singes right now are way too weak. They don't really feel like they make any sort of difference when it comes to the Heroic Strike environment. Those definitely need a buff. I think when I'm out damaging my energy weapon that's matching the Singe for that week with a just normal kinetic weapon, I think we've got a little bit of a problem here. So I would certainly love to see a buff to that sort of stuff. So yeah, add in some of those modifiers back from Destiny 1. I'd love to see Small Arms come back, and definitely the Singes need that big buff. For problem number 2, well, this is the simple one. There's really no reason to run Heroic Strikes right now. You're still getting, yeah, your Vanguard tokens, you're still getting some Glimmer, you're still getting, your 2 or 3 blue items, but we definitely need the advent of some strike-specific loot that people can grind for. The fact that we're missing that and that Heroic Strikes don't even drop 350 gear for you, despite the fact that that's the base light level for them, that I definitely think needs to see some changes. If Bungie wants to incentivize people to come into the Heroic Strike playlist and play for more than just the challenge of it, then they need to make some changes to the reward system for Heroic Strikes. I think if it's going to be a 350 light activity, then it needs to be dropping 350 rewards. And also, they've done this with other activities. We see Escalation Protocol has its own specific loot tied to it. It's got really awesome, powerful weapons. Of course, Braytech has some exclusive weapons. It's got its own armor system. We've got the fantastically unique Redrix's Claymore tied to the Glory ranking mode in PvP. That sort of powerful exclusive gear definitely needs to make its way into the Heroic Strike playlist. There needs to be some stuff that you can only get from running Heroic Strikes, just like back in the day with like the Grasp of Malak and the Hopscotch Pilgrim. How many people were running Heroic Strikes when they heard about that thing? Right now, I definitely think we just need more of a reason to run these strikes. Definitely something for us to chase for. And that is it. Those are my thoughts on Heroic Strikes. I've had a lot of time to play them over the past couple of days and a lot of time to think of what I like, what I dislike about Heroic Strikes, and I just wanted to get those thoughts out to you, Guardians. What are your thoughts? Do you like Heroic Strikes? Would you like to see them change? Would you as a Guardian like to be a bit more powerful, or do you think they're perfect the way they are? Be sure to let me know how you feel down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest Destiny 2 news. But anyways, that is enough rambling from me. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.